I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job.
Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why. Why can't we live together? Everybody wants to live together. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated beauties, sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
All right. We are here. Thank you for hanging in there with us. We had a little technical difficulty this morning, but we're here still during Black History Month. Still in February. We've had such a hard time getting to one another. We've had snow and ice and life and all of that. But Angelo and I are here to, we're sipping power. We're going to pour truth. And I have Lisa and Karen Holly on the phone. I'm super excited to be able to get them on. I got a call this morning at 5:30 this morning discussing their family's property. Lisa Holly is an anesthesiologist and has spent her life trying to make sure that people have the correct care, which is extremely important. I mean, we have all kinds of surgeons and physicians, and they're important, but the person that puts you to sleep and wakes you up is super, super important. And she's dedicated her life to making sure that people had the proper care so that they could have the procedures that they needed. And she's gotten into a dispute with United Healthcare several years ago, and then United Healthcare, instead of kind of correcting the billing code, which happens in healthcare, I know I've worked in healthcare for a number of years, instead of correcting the billing code, they sent her a bill for $2 million, and she's been fighting it ever since. And so now they are attacking her family's farm. And so I have the pleasure and the honor of speaking with Dr. Holly. Lisa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. So much for having me on this morning.
Oh, absolutely. So, we had an opportunity to speak a little bit this morning. It was kind of crazy, and your sister is someone that I've grown to know over the last, few months. But certainly did not know that you all were battling with this issue. And so, as I said before, United Healthcare has decided that they are going to, they've sued you for $2 million, and now they want to take your family's land. And so how many acres are we talking about?
We're talking about 503 acres.
And this land has been in your family since when?
For 53 years, so over half a century.
And so, I'm familiar with East Texas. I know when we talked earlier, you said the property is in East Texas. And so now what we're really facing is what so many Black people have faced in this country for a very long time. Because the issue is not whether or not you should pay your debts. That's not your issue. Your issue is there is a discrepancy. You want to be able to cure or fix the discrepancy. And I understand that you've even offered to settle with them to kind of bring this matter to a close because it has been ongoing for so long.
That is absolutely correct.
And so when you offer to settle, Lisa, what kind of money are we talking? Because it has been ongoing for so long. What kind of money are we talking about?
The initial settlement offer was $750,000.
Okay.
And this was actually in with a mediator. So all parties with attorney representation were on the phone, and we went back and forth. And United's stance was, until you come with seven figures, we're not talking. So at that point, that particular negotiation halted.
Okay, so what they're saying, and we're showing pictures of the land now, and so what they're saying is, unless you're offering them $1 million or more, they're not going to take anything.
Correct.
Okay, so they didn't even give you an opportunity to pay them $750,000 and then maybe make some other additional installments?
That is correct.
So really what we're talking about is not so much that they want to be paid. What they really want, it sounds like, is they want the land.
Right.
So for
Yes,
me,
that is correct.
so to me, what we're really talking about here is what, as I said before, so many black people have had to deal with. I know personally in my own family that we had a lot of land stretching from Tyler to almost Longview. And by the time my dad realized what was going on, there was less than 20 acres that had not been pieced off to people who were not in our family. And as a caveat, people who did not look like us. And so I wonder, with United Healthcare deciding that they want this property and not necessarily wanting to cure it for them to get the money, for them to be able to settle this matter, because it's been going on a long time. Most of the time, when you have these kinds of discrepancies and the person is saying, okay, I'll just, let me pay you because it's been ongoing for so long, usually they'll take the money. It's kind of like, any other debt collector, a credit card or whatever. Usually they take it for less than, because it's easier to stop all of the legal fees and all of the things that are going on to take the money and end the case. And you have not seen that happen in your particular case. Is that right?
That is correct.
So how has this affected you personally, financially, emotionally? What kind of effect has this had on you?
Yeah, this has just been a horrific experience. Of course, you can't imagine the stress, not only on myself, but also on the entire family. This land was previously owned by my parents and my dad's two other brothers. And so not only is it affecting me, it's affecting the entire family. And we're a tight-knit family. This land is where we grew up having family picnics with barbecue, ice cream cookouts, and riding horses. This is a place where we went to relax, fished on the property. Karen loved to fish. And everybody was just... And my dad still works there even at 86. That's his livelihood. He has almost 200 head of cattle, which he raises and sells. He bales the hay.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let me interrupt for 1 second. Your father,
Yes.
Is he living on the land as well?
He does not live on the land. However, he lives very close to the land. So he comes there on a daily basis to take care of the livestock.
So this is not just taking away your family's land, but it's taking away your father's ability to work and make money and eat and have shelter and, all of the things we've become accustomed to. It is essentially his livelihood. So without the land, that forces him to sell off the cattle, and then it leaves him with this void. But what I'm understanding you to say is he would literally look across the way and see what used to be his.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I really want to reiterate, that's his livelihood and his supplement. We all know how difficult it is for elderly people to make it on that limited fixed income. And that was his only way of supplementing his income.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack, because this ongoing dispute between you and United Healthcare, I think someone would say, well, what is the connection between, your dad and, if it's his land, how are you affecting the land? And really, like most of us do, your father conveyed the land to you because he was getting older.
That is absolutely correct. He transferred the land to me, and I was trying to protect the land as well, set up an irrevocable trust in 2007. Of course, that's done by an attorney. Little did I know that the trust would be pierced in a lawsuit like this.
You set up a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust?
Irrevocable.
Well, my understanding of an irrevocable trust is that's why you set it up. It protects your assets from creditors.
That was my understanding as well. However, the financial planner, when I questioned why is this happening, said, well, your trust wasn't set up exactly for that. It was basically for estate planning. We do not set up those kind of trusts unless you have $3 or $4 million. And I said, well, my several hundred thousand to $1 million is important to me.
So, well, then you had ineffective counsel.
Absolutely.
Because,
and unfortunately, that has been kind of a problem.
Well, that, again, unfortunately and saddened to say, that's not necessarily surprising. I've talked to attorneys that have, when we have these kinds of issues and they have to get involved and they say, oh, I'm not surprised. Because one of the things we've had a very difficult time with is wealth building, because we don't have home ownership, we don't own land. And so, just to go a step further, and certainly not to complicate a complicated issue, but the other thing that I've experienced is we will own the land and not own the mineral rights or that kind of thing. These things happen to us all of the time. And then we are left trying to pick up the pieces of our lives, and it shocks the consciousness, and to me it should shock the consciousness of anyone listening, that they would not be inclined to settle. Because how long has this been going on?
This has been going on almost 7 years. Almost 7 years.
So where are you all now? What is it that you're hoping to accomplish at this point?
We are at the 11th hour. My family land is about to be sold at auction on March 2nd, the first Tuesday of March, to the highest bidder.
And so United Healthcare is hoping to drive the cost up, and then they can get it. But I wouldn't be surprised if a United Healthcare representative was there to buy the property themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, you will keep us posted, and you'll certainly let us know what we can do for you if there's anything at all. But we'll certainly continue to discuss this. We'll talk about it and try to get this issue out. And my optimism tells me that you're going to be able to do something to stop the sale before Tuesday. And then please circle back to us in this show and let us know what has transpired since Tuesday. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And I will certainly keep you abreast of any new progress.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Holly. I appreciate the call. Thank you for letting this show participate in that. I have spoken to Dominique Alexander, and we're going to see what we can do to continue to get the word out about this atrocity. Thanks so much. This is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Baby.
Okay. Did other people tell you? Okay, Colin. Let me get them on.
Here come the sirens. Old lady dance.
Nourished skin is healthy skin. Simply Ardor skincare products provides luxurious nourishment for your body. Indulge in rich scrubs and body butters and top it off with our sensational and unique aromatic lines of sprays and roll-on fragrances. It's simple and lovely. Simply Ardor. Love is real. Just spread it.
All right, and this is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. We've got a great show today, and I wanted to get the Holly family on because, Black people tend to always experience a lot of difficulty holding on and maintaining their property, because that is a way to build wealth. But another way to build wealth is to have real love and what that looks like. And so we have Ed and Stacia Gowans on, who wrote a book, We Redo. And in this book, which is very, very candid, they discuss the trials of their marriage as well as the triumphs of their marriage. So Ed and Stacia, welcome to the Black Tea Sip.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. So I want to talk about We Redo. Let's talk about the title. How did you come up with We Redo?
Well, I think that part is the easiest in terms of writing the book. So, of course, you start by saying, and we had gone.
Stacia, we can't hear you. The phone is cutting in and out, and we can't understand what you're saying.
Oh, you can't hear me? Hold on. I might have to take it off the speaker. Is this better?
Much better. Yeah, the speaker gets too much feedback. Okay, all right.
Okay.
One more time.
Feedback. So, okay. So We Redo was probably the easiest part of the book in terms of coming up with the title. So we all know that when we stand and say our vows, we're asked to say, I do. And we will talk about, I'm sure, we will get into the difficulties that we've endured in our marriage. And we really had to make the decision to say, we redo. We are recommitting to each other and to this marriage. So that was probably the easiest part of the book. Coming up with how it would be structured and what we would say was a little bit more difficult.
Okay. Well, the way the book reads, or the writing, it really put me in the mind of, I'm going to say, the movie with Sanaa Lathan and Taye Diggs. And they're basically talking about how hip-hop or music really played such a significant role in so much of the movie and each occurrence or happenstance in their lives. And so we have several movies that have done that. They've done it in Love and Basketball. They've done it in Love Jones, which are iconic Black movies, right? But I've never seen it done in a book. And that's really what you all did. You start out, you give the titles, but every title has a group, and you're talking about a song and how you felt at a particular time in your life, and you equate that to a particular song. And I thought that was very interesting. So what brought that about?
Well, I'm going to have to answer this one too, even though my beloved husband is sitting here, because that was really kind of my brainchild. We really just like music, right? And we like all of the same music. And when we started to think about, we don't want to just do another boring, preachy relationship book, right? We want to do something that people can really identify with. And most people identify with music. And really, if you think back to times in your life or relationships, there's always songs associated with it, right? Like if it's a heartbreak song, if it's, a time that you had a great time with your girlfriends on a trip, you always associate, different feelings and stages of your life with songs. And so at least coming up with that idea, I think was kind of probably more on me, and I think Ed would admit that too. But then it was really fun coming up with, okay, so how are we going to tell the story, and what songs really go with that phase of our life? And because you've read the book, but we break it up into the she-do section, which is the story from my perspective, the he-do section, which is the story from Ed's perspective, and then sort of our collective wisdom about that time in our life the we do section. And so it was really interesting and fun, kind of the songs that really matched each one of those sections.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the he do and the she do in the way the book is broken up, because the he do and the she do is what really makes this book very riveting. And I think it's what makes it the kind of read that couples should read, whether they're married, thinking about marriage, or just really want to have an effective relationship, because the he do and the she do don't necessarily match up regarding the same kind of points of view. And I think that was really kind of interesting.
Yeah, Corey. I mean, that was.
Go ahead.
Hey, that was the purpose of that, right? Because we felt like there were sides to, there's always two sides to every argument, right? There's the husband view, the wife view. There's a coming together. So there may be some commonality, but we really wanted to tell it from each of our perspective, because sometimes in marriage, that's what it is. My perspective, my feelings, her perspective. And then, as she stated, we kind of brought it all together with the redo, which is kind of like the learnings that we had from that. And I think it just really highlights, and like you said before, like it's just really real and raw to have that perspective to help people understand we all have our separate angles and views in the relationship, and that can add to the challenges of the relationship. But, once you're able to come together, then the redo section really highlights and pulls everything together from both sides.
Well, and I'm glad that Stacia shoved the mic in your face and made you talk, because I want to talk to you about something that really caught my attention. And early in your marriage, you moved your mother in, and I thought that was interesting in a sense, because oftentimes we experience that much later in life. We have aging parents, and so you all kind of started with that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, this is as Stacia and I were just starting off in our relationship, and we actually hadn't moved in together, but my mom was having some challenges, some difficulty.
No, you were very candid about her difficulties. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, so my mom suffered from mental illness. She was bipolar with schizophrenia, and growing up, it was challenging. I mentioned in the book just not knowing the history of it, and being a young child, when your mom yells at you or whatever, you're just like, okay, I'm in trouble. There's some other parts of that, just the inconsistency with just her behaviors and stuff. I didn't know how to interpret that. The good thing is I did have family members who were able to help when she would have certain episodes that required her to be hospitalized, and they were able to take me in for a little bit, and that was always the case with certain family members. So as I got older and I started to become more aware of, there's something wrong here. And the interesting thing is, family wasn't really giving me a lot of details. It wasn't until I was like, 17, 18, I really understood, okay, she has a condition, she has this illness. And then it started to all make sense. When my mother started having difficulty later in life and I just finished college, I thought to myself, hey, I'll be a good son. I'll help her out. Let me bring her in. Not fully understanding the responsibility it takes. And, being young at that time, it probably didn't lend itself very well for me to fully understand and be able to handle it, because I wasn't in a position mentally to kind of handle it. And it wasn't until I got older that, we really found a way to balance that. And really, I had challenged my mom that, if she wants to be involved, especially when Stacia and I start having kids, I'm going to need her to do certain things. I'm going to need her to, stay on her medication. I'm going to need her to go see her doctors. And later in life, I think she was much better with that. And it even got to the point before she passed in 2013, we were actually considering having her move here to Texas with us, not necessarily move in with us, but, be somewhere close to us so we can help her with her. But yeah, you're right. That dynamic happened, and it definitely added to a part of our relationship that caused some strain. But we were able to get through it. But, whenever you talk about bringing a parent in, whether they're living with you or you have responsibility for them, it can add some challenges to the marriage.
Well, and I think, because I talk about aging parents and couples having to deal with that. And oftentimes being a caretaker on any level is extremely taxing on a relationship, because it compromises your time. Things that you may plan to do, you can't do because something comes up. And Stacia, what was that like, early in your relationship, and you're digging this man, and he's having to see about his mother who is having mental challenges? You must have really liked him.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting, Coy, I will tell you. And I think the way that we made it through is one thing that Ed never really struggled with, particularly once we got married, is who was number one. Mm-hmm. I didn't have to fight him. I didn't have to assert myself and say,
right.
I should come first in this relationship. He always kind of got that. And it may be because he had struggled, growing up and experiencing what he did with his mom and knowing my personality. And I'm I kind of jump first and ask questions later sometimes.
Yeah.
So he always did a really, really good job of it was very clear, Mom, I love you and I care for you, but this is my wife and she is always going to be first. So he did a great job of that. I never really had to never had to contend with any kind of mama's boy issues, which is interesting because he was his mother's only child. But he absolutely kind of got the order, right? The right order of things. Yeah. And then, she and I could identify on this is going to sound silly, but I still watch Young and the Restless to this day. Okay. I got that from my grandmother.
I'm one of those in General Hospital, all my children. I understand. Exactly. Grandmama's baby. I get it.
Exactly. So, she loved Young and the Restless. So that was the thing we could kind of identify
that was your tie.
And talk about. Yeah. That was our tie. So I tried really hard to create that, that relationship with her. And then, of course, once we had kids, it became a lot easier because you have grandkids and you want to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. But, I think Ed always did a really good job of making sure I knew I wouldn't have to worry about it. I was always going to be number one.
So Ed, I want to bring you back in because Stacia, you have touched on a really critical point. This is a huge criticality, not just for young couples starting out, but really for people. I know people throughout their marriage where the woman feels like she's constantly contending with the mother, and sometimes it's not the mother, sometimes it's the grandmother, sometimes it's a sister, it's a close cousin, sometimes it's a childhood friend, where you never really feel like, and it's not just always on the man. There are women that miss this point as well. Can you talk about how you were able to know what kind of discovery that was to say, this is how I set my house up? If I set my house up and she is first in my life and everyone recognizes that, then that makes it easier. Can you talk about was it instinctive? Was it kind of an innate ability? Or was it something that you really had to dissect and enter into?
So I think, and this is just my learnings. For me, once Stacia and I became serious, and marriage was on the table, I think I had, well, first of all, my father, who I mentioned in the book, mm-hmm. he actually was married, and I have other siblings from that marriage. But I mean, he actually did some counseling before us, and then Stacia and I were actually involved in church as well. So it's funny that you mentioned that. One of the things that I took away from starting our marriage out and everything was that the importance of we now are one. We myself and Stacia, we are now one. We are a family. Our responsibilities are to one another and then to our kids that we have. And yes, you are going to always love and care for and have respect for your parents, but you have to live that marriage for each other and not for the family members, not for the friends. Mm-hmm. And, Stacia and I kind of joke, we kind of take the line from New Jack City, CMB, we all we got. So it's really taking that perspective of we all we have. And if we're going to make it work, we have to manage those relationships, manage the expectations and everything, and not have that interfere because, you're right, there's going to be difficulty in the house if she's a daddy's girl, but she never let her relationship with her father interfere with my position in the family as, the man of the household and everything. And I never let my relationship with my mom interfere with her as being, my wife and my number one priority along with my kids. So that was one thing that that I learned to take on early on, just understanding that this new life meant it was me and her. The marriage itself is about her and I coming together. It didn't say you come together and, by the way, bring in your mama and your best friend and everyone else, right? That's not what we learned and how we were able to kind of make the relationship work.
So now you all, and I've had the opportunity to spend time with you. So I know kind of who you guys are I used to joke and say Stacia makes you take all those pictures. And I said, he don't want to take those pictures. Look at his eyes. He's just going along with it. but it does show the sweetness between you. But this book is not all, sweet, and it's not all honeys and spices. And I want to get into a little bit of the trials and how you went from trial to triumph. So, Stacia, can you talk about kind of how you were feeling? Because I don't want to give too much away, because I think people should read this book. But can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you were feeling at certain times in the marriage, and then how, what your reaction to that would be?
Sure. There's so much to share.
There is. So you pick.
There's so much to share. So the one thing that I want people to understand is one of the reasons that we wrote this book is we would hear oftentimes similar sentiments to what you just expressed, Coy. You guys are the perfect couple. Do you guys ever fight? You guys get along so well, which was absolutely true. I would say it was true even through the tribulation we went through, to be honest. We've always gotten along really, really well, and I think it's very important to note we actually like each other. We love each other too, but we don't just love each other. We like each other. Like, he's my best friend. I tell people all the time, I'm a great secret keeper, but if you tell me you can't tell anybody, you have to know up front. That does not include Ed. I'm telling I tell him everything.
Well, that's a valid point, because you hear people say, oh, but we love each other. But, love, I had a friend years ago that dated my childhood friend that played in the NFL, and I was really trying to counsel her, and she was so hurt, and I said, well, I know he loves you, and she said, sometimes love is not enough. And so it is important that you like one another, that you enjoy spending time with one another, that you have some of the same interest, and because that's a breakdown in marriages as well. You start out one way when you're young, and then as you grow, you develop different interests and different friends, and it pulls and it strains on the marriage. And I think that's a really interesting point that you're bringing up, that we love each other, but we like each other. So even when you were going through your trial in your marriage, and as you put it, your tribulations, the fact that you liked each other, do you think that was kind of the roadmap to get you to the redo?
I think it was a part of it, because it certainly wasn't, so we don't want to give away too much, but I do want to be very clear. We struggled, both of us, with infidelity. And in terms of order, his infidelity was discovered by me first. And that was hard, probably harder, because I didn't just love him. Like, he's my best friend.
Right.
So if we talk about we're going to separate, we had kids at the time, but if we're going to separate and live separate lives, like, I'm not just losing my husband. This is my best friend. What am I going to do? So it's almost like, for me, dealing with the grief of the death of two relationships, the marital relationship, but also with my best friend. And, the only way through, there's tons of, kind of tips and tricks and lessons that we learned in the book, but I think there are a couple of key points. And one is that if you've driven your relationship into a ditch, you cannot get yourself out. Okay? So you need help. You need people who are skilled in being able to help you both objectively see how you got to this point, and what are some of the tactics to get yourselves out. And communication is always going to be probably one of the biggest pieces that we all miss in all of our relationships. But being able to identify and communicate what you need, not what you want, but what you need. I really feel like once we got that, because that really means you've got to be vulnerable. If you're going to tell somebody what you need, you've got to understand that they may not need it, right? Even now that they know it, they may not be able to meet it. And what are you going to do when they don't? And that's particularly difficult for men. So maybe we'll have Ed speak on that a little bit, but to identify what you need and to be in that vulnerable place, I think, is one of the keys that really enabled us to both see, oh my gosh, we haven't expressed what we need to each other. So of course I wasn't meeting your needs. You weren't meeting my needs. And because I wasn't, you kind of stuffed that down, didn't say anything, because Ed is definitely a go with the flow kind of guy, and felt like someone else was meeting those needs. Right? I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right. Well, and I think that is the part that people don't talk about. You know, people don't talk about the fact that, you know, you hear people, every relationship, and I'm going to call him a pundit, says communication is key. Communication. But if you are not a good communicator, and for men in particular, they are uncomfortable communicating certain things. You know, we are, most women, I mean, there are some women that are, you know, kind of mutes, but women, we're typically the ones that, you know, well, tell me you love me, you know, and they're like, but I'm showing you. Do I need to say it? Because I'm showing you. And so you get that, you know, the kind of, you know, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So when you're talking about healing the relationship, because you really are talking about meeting one another's needs, you know, being present in the moment for one another. That also, again, goes back to liking someone well enough to kind of know them, because you can love someone and not know that they hate red fingernail polish or that he would never wear a pink shirt. And I think it's really important that you're bringing these issues to the surface, because it's not just communication, but it's what I like to call, you are participatory and witnessing the other person's life. That way you do anticipate their needs, because you're there witnessing it, not just trying to, you know, respond for, you know, you're listening for or hearing for a response, not listening for an understanding. You're actually participating. Ed, let's talk a little bit about when you felt like your needs weren't being met.
Yeah, sure. So for me, when I felt my needs weren't being met, so I think I'll start with a little bit about, you know, I'm one of those guys that, hey, listen, I can handle anything in the relationship. I can, you know, take care of bills. I can, you know, get the cars fixed. I can handle, I can run to the grocery store. Yeah, I can even iron clothes and cook. I mean, when Stacia and I met, it's always funny because she saw me as so independent. She was like, well, this guy's so independent. What's wrong with him? Why does he have his bills paid? And, you know, why has he got his own place? Why is this place clean? How does this dude know how to cook three square meals and everything like that? And she just whispered to me like, and why was he already married? So I knew how to take care of myself. So, you know, adding someone to the household, being able to do that, it wasn't really a challenge for me. As Stacia said, though, us communicating needs, that was something that I probably was I didn't have enough experience with. And so that was lacking. So I never knew how to explain to her what I needed from her, and more or less really having a good conversation, because I think what would happen is, you know, if something wasn't happening in the household, she, you know, maybe something I'm not doing is something I said, you know, she gets frustrated, then I'm frustrated, but we never really talk to bring it back together to say, okay, what really is at the root of us being frustrated? What's really at the root of me being frustrated? And in one of our counseling sessions we had, we always learned that sometimes it's not that visible thing that's going on. It's something else that happened. It might have happened a day before or 2 days before. It might have been something ongoing as you just held on to that point, and then all of a sudden you exploded. I know Stacia will talk about, like, I'm very calm and I'm very, you know, just very even keeled, but I do have a breaking point. Sometimes being frustrated, you know, you decide, like, you know, I don't want to deal with this. So you either, as a guy, shut down, or you go do something else. You find something else to fill what you're missing. And that's where it kind of got me into trouble. It's just not being able to open up and communicate to her, but do it in a way that she could understand, right? It's not about me yelling and trying to dictate to her, say, well, you don't make me happy and this is what you need to do. First of all, she cannot be responsible for my happiness. My happiness should not come from her, right? We have this assumption in society that the person you marry, their job is to make you happy, and when they don't make you happy, the first thing you do is you go ahead and you leave. That's not it, right? Marriage is about that spouse being a complement to you, not necessarily completing you. There's a big difference between complimenting someone and completing you.
That's a very valid point.
Yeah.
Very valid point. And very well said. It is a big difference. And so, you hear oftentimes where women will say, well, if she was doing it right at home, he wouldn't be over here with me. But over there with you is kind of the supplement. I always liken it to vitamins. I said, well, they tell you should take some vitamins, but you really do need to eat the fruits and the vegetables. Like, you need to actually put the food in your mouth and chew it up and not just take a pill. It's the supplement. It's not really, it's to accompany what else you're doing. It's not really the whole thing. And so I think people really confuse what happens when there is infidelity in a relationship. A lot of times, and I've said this before, a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with you, because Ed, you admit that you were unhappy and that you were the one that was not articulating your needs, your wants, your desires in a way that she could take it in and it was palatable and where it was applicable, right? So some onus has to be on you. And so I think people really confuse what happens with infidelity. Stacia, talk about a little bit about kind of what drove you down that same road. And then, I would love to hear from the both of you of how you kind of got yourselves out of that mode, didn't hold it against one another, and were able to redo your I do, if you will. So tell me a little bit about kind of what took you down your path, why you felt like you needed someone else.
Right. So, again, we had quote unquote survived Ed's infidelity, but to say that I wasn't at all upset, right? And really, was I healed? No, I wasn't. And so in my circumstance, I put the onus completely on me. Somebody asked me before, was this like a revenge cheat situation? And I said, yeah, you know what? That's kind of a cop-out. I have to take responsibility for my own bad actions, regardless of what he did. Okay, so just saying it's a revenge cheat for me gives me too much of an easy out. And in my situation, it was absolutely one of those, this could be like a movie, one of those situations where it's like the one person that you should probably just never talk to again because y'all are like just fire, right? When you're together. I hadn't heard from this person in years and years and years. Here we are. I know my husband has cheated on me, and here comes as I describe it in the book, and here comes my kryptonite. And at that moment, I should have been like, do not take that call. Do not go to dinner. No, this is the one. You cannot see this person.
But did you take the call? Did you take the call out of hurt? Because I don't want to confuse like revenge or you're trying to get your lick back. Sometimes it's hurt, it's pain, and you really need someone to say, hey, you're okay, you're enough. I desire you and I want you. Was it that?
You know what I think it was? This is going to sound terrible. At the time, this is what my mindset was. It was out of, oh, this is my gift. This is for me.
Yes.
Like, God has now brought this back. I mean, as twisted as that sounds.
No, but I get it. I absolutely get it.
Yeah, I was like, this is meant to be. That's exactly what I thought. And so, for me, and it's, it's a shame to admit it now, but mine was definitely much more on the emotional end because this was a person I knew for quite some time. And so, I think it's really important for us to identify for ourselves what are our triggers, what are our roadblocks, and be equipped to say no. Because I was not. And I just think it was like the perfect storm. I think I say backdraft kind of in the book. This is like the backdraft type of fire. Right. And I think it's really important to own up right to yourself and say, this is all on you, sis, and you could have made a different decision. I also think it's really important for people to understand, like, nobody wakes up in the morning, even if you're not 100% happy, and says, I think I'm going to cheat on my spouse today. That's not how it works.
Right.
It's a very slow burn. It's a slow process, and you have to be so careful as a spouse. You have to be so careful that you don't let anything, you don't even let the beginnings of anything started, oh, it's just a text message. Oh, it's just no.
Right.
Because before you know it, you turn around and you are in some full-blown mess that you don't know how to get yourself out of. And so I think it's really important that people understand that's not how it happens. And as to your point, Coy, it's not because necessarily you don't love the person that you're with. I can tell you, during my entire affair, I still love my husband. I don't want to leave my husband. Otherwise, I would have left my husband.
Okay,
I know you
guys got to. I know you have some other things to do. Can we take a break and bring you back? Because I need to pay some bills, but I want to come back to that point. Can you give us some maybe? Can you hang on give us about 10 more minutes of your time?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, sure. We're gonna pay some bills. We'll be right back. This is Coy with your Black Tea Sip.
Hello, everyone. I am Dr. James, host of Dr. James McConnell's The Small Business Network, broadcasting live each week on Saturday at 1 p.m. from Fishbowl Radio Network studios at Globe Life Park in Arlington, Texas. Log on to hear us talk about and feature small businesses and the life of a small business, the struggles, the triumphs, the daily operation, the grind of starting and running a small business. So be sure to log on each week on Saturday at 1 p.m. to catch Dr. James McConnell's The Small Business Network. Let's jump in.
Wanting to host your own podcast or radio show, but don't know where to start? Have you been told you have the gift of gab or a lot to say, but don't know what to do with it? Don't answer that. It's simple. Fishbowl Radio Network, home to your favorite online radio shows. So contact us today and become the next big name in the industry. With a number of services to help grow your audience and expand your brand, there's no question why Fishbowl Radio Network is #1 in the business. With everything going on in the community, people are constantly looking for new info and entertainment. Now you can be that voice to bring what they need. Stop talking about what you want to do and bring it on air. Call Fishbowl Radio Network at 817-633-4880. That's 817-633-4880 and jump in.
Hello, I'm Bill. I've been in the financial industry for over 30 years. Now I share my passion for helping others become more financially educated. Why are so many people interested in what I share? Because like others, I've discovered who the financially free are and who they are not. But most importantly, I've determined how ordinary people can become financially free. If you're struggling with living paycheck to paycheck, drowning in debt while struggling to save for retirement, then I can get you the support you need. By joining the Mustard Seed Financial Literacy Series membership, you will get access to my financial courses. Hey, don't worry, I'm not going to teach you how to become a financial consultant, but I am going to show you how to get out of debt, how to raise your credit score, and how to put savings away for retirement. My courses are simple and easy to follow at your own pace. So join today at abetterwaytogrow.org. That's abetterwaytogrow.org. I'm going to show you a better way to grow.
Hello, we are It's About the Kids Incorporated. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates out of Dallas, Texas.
Our mission is to focus on the kids of today who will become the youth of tomorrow and the adult of the future. Today, tomorrow, the future.
Empowering the community one family at a time.
You can reach us at all social media platforms at It's About the Kids or online at www.itsaboutthekids.org.
Where we mentor a child, save a life.
Hi, this is Diane Marion Eunice, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. For the past 9 years, I have worked with over 300 couples in the areas of sexual health, communication, and conflict resolution. If you are interested in rebuilding connection and intimacy with your partner, please contact me today. I can be reached at 682-201-8175, or you can email me at diane@letstalkrelationships.org, or visit my website at www.letstalkrelationships.org. And remember, you can't heal if you refuse to deal.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job.
Tell me why, tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together? Tell me why, tell me why. Why can't we live together?
Hello, all you melanated beauties, sun-kissed by God's lips. This is Coy with your black tea sip. I'm sipping power to pour you the truth. Go grab your cup. Let's fill it up.
All right, and we're back. This is Coy with the black tea sip, where we sip power to pour truth. And we have the pleasure, the honor, and the privilege to have Ed and Stacia Gowans on. They wrote the book We Redo, and Redo is their recommitment to their initial I do. And so if you're just joining us, we've been having what I consider a riveting conversation about relationships and marriage and how to really articulate what you need and what you want. And they're not going to completely give their book away because they do want you to buy it, and I suggest you do. But they're saying there are specific steps and tools that you should have. And so if you're just coming on with us, Stacia, before the break, was talking about going down a path of infidelity. She was very candid, and so was Ed in the book, about they've both had their moments of infidelity. And so, Stacia, before we broke, you were saying your kryptonite called you, and you felt like, oh, well, this is kind of a gift to me. This is kind of like my rescue out of my hurt and my pain. This is going to fix things. And I don't mean fix it in a revenge kind of way, like I'm getting my lick back, but fix it in a way where you said, as we said before, I'm wanted, I'm desired, I'm needed by someone, because you do feel depleted emotionally when you find out the person that you love, and in your case, your best friend, the person that you like as well as love, has betrayed that trust. And we were talking about that before the break. And so I kind of want to get to the part where you get to the earth, wind, and fire part of the book. And again, if you're just joining us, the book is really titled and is attributed to certain feelings and emotions through song. And so we get to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it is After the Love is Gone. And so can you all talk a little bit about how, after the love is gone, how you get back to what we see now, to Stacia making you take all those pictures, Ed. We're gonna start a support group for her, and so she stopped making you take all those pictures. But it's a sweetness, it's very genuine, and you can see the friendship that you all have in the pictures. How do you get from finding out that Ed cheated, you're involved with your kryptonite, him discovering your kind of and I'm using this loosely, not necessarily from the book. I'm sure he felt kind of you trying to get your lick back in a sense. How do you get back to taking pictures in the gym where she wearing you out, Ed? How do you get there?
Hold on, I gotta get him.
Turn it up a little bit.
Pictures in the gym and back to the love.
All right, so back to love. Let me start off by Stacia doesn't whip me in the gym. It's a partnership. We work out together. But yeah, the thing about getting over the hurt, right? I mean, you still have that initial shock. You have the initial pain. You have the hurt. You have the anger. Those emotions are valid, right? Those are the whole emotions of, grief or loss that you have, right? She talked about it earlier, losing the relationship, feeling like the marriage was gone, felt like she lost her best friend. On the flip side, for me, finding out about her transgressions, I felt the same way. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So we doing tit for tat, so now I'm supposed to forgive you. How am I supposed to deal with that? I'll tell you, a lot of self-examination and really questioning, is this relationship worth it? I've done this to her. She's done this to me. Are we really meant for one another? Because if we were, maybe we wouldn't have done this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once we got over the initial shock, and let me just speak for myself. When I got over the shock, I had to sit down and ask myself the question, am I willing to stay in this? Am I willing to fight for this?
I'm sure.
How am I going to do this? And we talked about it earlier. I mean, you can't really do this on your own. You need help. But you also not only need professional help, you need your village around you. You need your family, friends who are in your corner, who are going to give it to you like it is. They're going to be honest up front, but they're going to have your best interest at heart. And everyone I knew said, listen, you know what? People make mistakes. What are you going to learn from it? How are you going to be better? And did you have some ownership in this? And I had to do some self-evaluation. I had to do a little bit of swallowing my pride. But then I had to go back to say, what is this marriage about? What is it for? And this marriage has always been about as we are supposed to represent what God's love is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're really talking about that, then we're talking about forgiving. We're talking about exhibiting selflessness, right? And we're dealing with being understanding and patient, and all those key aspects are the things I had to take into consideration if I was going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And Stacia alluded to it earlier, like she is my good friend. She is someone that I can laugh. And was I going to give this all away? Was it worth fighting for? And once I was able to just come to that conclusion, it actually made it easier. And I think for her, and I'll let her speak, once she saw that I was willing to stay and I was willing to fight for her, I think it reaffirmed for her that, our marriage was destined to be together. We were for one another. And that if I was willing to stay and fight for her, knowing what I know, then she could stay and fight for me.
So let me ask you this, Ed, before you pass the mic to Stacia. Was it difficult to admit to your friends? Because, now from a woman's perspective, and I'm going to go slow because all the guys that listen to this show are going to be like, wait a minute. But from a woman's perspective, you think a guy might tell his friend that he's got a little side piece, and his friend's like, oh, okay, Now, some guys actually like, no, don't do that. But, in our minds, we think the guy's going to be like, oh, okay. So really the issue is the difficulty telling them that she did it to you. Or did you experience when you said I cheated and the eyebrows went up, and then when you said she cheated, did the same eyebrows go up?
Yeah, I think with my dependable resources, that they were just like, hey, so what are you guys doing? Okay, now that you've gone through that, you admitted, you shared your part, she shared her part. Are you going to stay and fight? And I know she had some friends on her side that said, girl, it would surprise her, which is, you need to stay. You guys are destined to be together. And the amazing thing is, my little network, they basically had the same thing. They said, listen, you guys are good together. You are our example. And they really had faith in me and faith in her to say, you guys can pull this together. Like, you show so much strength. Don't let this be the one thing that pulls you guys apart, because what else is it going to show everyone else about marriage, if it falls apart? It just tells everybody else that, hey, you know what, it happens, and the best thing to do is go your separate ways. The ultimate love you can have for one another is to sacrifice and stay and work through it. And that's what we ended up doing.
So when you find yourself saying, hey, we need help, did you find yourself difficulty saying to someone, hey, this is where I am? Because I would think it's really difficult to say to someone, I cheated and my wife cheated. So that part of it, how do you get your, the quote unquote nerve up to be able to tell someone I need help because of these reasons?
So I'll just highlight this story, and I think we talked about it in our book. We were at a marriage conference, and we were still trying to do the day-to-day stuff. We were still trying to see if this was going to work. We were still involved in church. At this conference, one of the pastors shared about his infidelity that his wife did on him. And I think that spoke to Stacia in volumes. Mm-hmm. And with that, we decided to connect with them, and they counseled us on that, right? So having someone that's gone through it, that can speak to it and make that identification for you and relate to you about it, that's what helped. And that's when, gotcha. Like what we said earlier in this call, having your network, having your people who are, number one, in your corner, but people who can relate to you. Now, maybe they don't go through the exact same thing, but, we all have troubles in our relationship. Everyone has various different ups and downs. Having someone that you can relate to, you can share with, you can communicate with, who you can bounce ideas off of, questions or concerns, and who's going to give it back to you true and honest. That's what you need. That's your village. That's your network. That's your community. That's your family. That's your friends. Those who are in your corner, who are authentic and who are really for you. Those are the things that are going to help you get through something like this.
Stacia, I can tell you chomping at the bit. Let me hear it, because I know you have something to add.
Always, right? I think Ed really hit so well on, you have to be committed. You have to first decide up front, yes, this is going to be hard, but I'm actually in it. Mm-hmm. So when that next hard time comes, you don't cut and run, right? You're like, nope, I'm in it. I think the other pieces are around creating a plan. How are we going to get through this? So, yes, we need to have counseling sessions. How often? Who are we going to go to? Make sure that you both agree on those, and then do your homework when they give you homework assignments, because they always do. You need to, I think the other part is that you have to sometimes just be obedient to that plan and to the process, even when you don't want to be. Yeah. And that is really kind of difficult. Again, you have to commit up front, but then you also have to be obedient to the plan. This is what I said I was going to do, because there will come a time you don't want to do that thing anymore. Mm-hmm. And you still have to be committed to doing it. And in our relationship, I think one of the funniest things now that I look back on it, and reasons that I was able to get over his infidelity, was because he pushed me, even at the time, to still go to church. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to go. I really didn't. But I went. Yeah. So I didn't want to be there, but I was there, right? Obedience.
Right. Okay.
Is just
and that's saying a lot.
absolutely
Obedient. That's saying a lot.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and we don't like to be obedient. I mean, in our flesh.
Right, absolutely.
In our selfishness, we don't want to do that, And then I think the last part is just, if I had to say this to myself back then, because I know it now, but I didn't really know it then, is to have faith that it can actually work. Have faith that you can actually get to the point, which we are at now, mm-hmm. where we could literally write this whole book about such a painful experience, but we didn't feel the pain when we wrote this book.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Right? So,
no, I think you need to say that again for the people in the cheap seat. I think you need to, because that's a really valuable point.
Yeah, that you can get to the point that you can literally trust again, and you can literally love without abandon and be as vulnerable as you were when you first said I do. You can absolutely get to that point, because we're there, right? If we can rewrite this whole book, hey, we had to tell our whole family before we published this book, including our children.
Well, that was going to be my next question before I let you guys go. So I'm glad you brought it up. What was that like? Yeah. Because, you don't want them to have shock, but, you know, now they're going through their own grief and process.
Right. It was, especially with our kids, it was so much easier than I built it up to be. And that's the way it is in life with so many things. We build up this big old bad boogeyman, and it's going to be terrible, and they're going to be so disappointed in us as people. Mm-hmm. And boy, we told both of our kids, and they were like, the first words out of my daughter's mouth, who's 21 and she's a sociology major, she said, "I'm so proud of you guys."
Oh, that is beautiful.
And I thought, that is not at all what I expected to come out of your mouth. Right. And, she said, "Hey, listen, first of all, you're still together. You made it, right?"
She's very mature.
But you have, but you've demonstrated for us that we too may go through difficulties in a marriage.
Wait,
but
let's
it's
stop right there.
To work through it.
That is an extremely valuable point, because oftentimes people are not as brave as you and Ed are. They are not as candid, and the children find themselves in difficult situations and do not know what to do, because they haven't been taught that marriage is not peaches and cream. They have not witnessed and seen struggle to triumph. And because that has been withheld for, the purposes of keeping them safe, or because the parents want to keep themselves safe, don't want to ruin the idea that they think their children have of them, they actually cripple them and handicap them because they don't understand the functionality of a real relationship.
That's right. That's exactly right. So we really learned that, our kids, and they are grown now. We wouldn't have told them this story the same way if they were in 6th and 7th grade.
Absolutely.
But, it was really helpful. And I can't tell you how many people have reached out to us individually and collectively since we've written this book and said, "I've been there. I felt like I was alone. I had nobody to talk to." One of my girlfriends is so funny. She says, "I should have talked to you before my divorce," right? Like, shoot.
Well, she probably needed to.
Yeah. So we appreciate, just the opportunity. We tell people all the time, we did not write this book to become rich. We both have full-time, very busy jobs, but we do want people to know that they're not alone, that you can work through what things that you vowed you would never do or you could never work through. You can. And there is beauty on the other side. I think we say in the book, we now have beauty for ashes. Right. And we're just in such a fantastic place now. It's not perfect. Nothing is ever perfect, but we're in such a good place now. And we want people to understand you can have that too. And that's kind of why we wrote the book.
I have enjoyed so much talking to you all. I'd love to get you back on sometime in the future and let you tell me about how you've helped so many people, because I think that's exactly what this book is going to do. If you've got one thing that you want to leave somebody with, what is that one thing that you said that's the quintessential thing to being able to keep your marriage healthy and happy?
Ooh, the one thing. I'm going to go with faith.
Oh, that's
and I don't mean just faith in your partner and faith in yourself, but faith in God, right? If you've got that alignment right with your marriage, that your happiness and your fulfillment first comes from the Lord, and then the overflow goes to your spouse. If you have that alignment right, there's literally nothing that you can't do, and no places that your marriage can't go. Ed, do you have a different one?
I would say for me, it's the realization of moving pride out of the way, right? So many times we don't work on something, we don't give 100% because of our pride, per se, of, well, I shouldn't have to do this, or, the expectations we have. But sometimes you have to be able to, especially in a marriage, you have to be able to put the other person first, realizing that your goal is to love them unconditionally, be forgiving, all those things that, you learn in Corinthians. It talks about what love and marriage is. So that, to me, is what I think can take you to that next level.
Okay. I love it. Ed and Stacia Gowans wrote a beautiful sing-along book called We Redo. This is Corey with the Black Tea Sip. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Stay with me. I got to call the school back. I just said that.
Let's get it drunk up on that fun up in this dancery. We got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it percolated, fire waiting, so just dance for me. Come on, everybody, get on down, 'cause you know we got to get it wrong. Mary J is in the spot tonight, and I'ma make you feel alright. Come on, baby, just party with me. Let loose and set your body free. Leave your situations at the door, so when you step inside, jump on the floor. Let's get it drunk up on in this dancery. We got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it percolated while you're waiting, so just dance for me. It's only gonna be about a matter of time before you get loose and start to lose your mind. Cop you a drink, go ahead and rock your eyes, 'cause we're celebrating no more drama in our lives. With the great track pumping, everybody's jumping. Go ahead and twist your back and get your body bumping. I told you leave your situations at the door, so grab somebody and get your ass on the dance floor. Let's get it on that fun up in this dancery. We got y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holleration in this dancery. Let's get it percolated while you're waiting, so just dance for me. Don't need no haters, y'all. We don't need no y'all open, now you're floating, so you got to dance for me. Don't need no hateration, holler. We don't need no haters. We just want y'all to holler when you hear me. Get it percolated. So just dance for me.
Do you want to find a stable job in a growing field? IT jobs such as network systems administrators, cybersecurity, programming, cloud, and computer systems analyst are expected to increase 25% by 2022. Texas Premier Technology Institute offers training for top certifications such as CompTIA, Cisco, and Microsoft in less than 12 weeks. And if you're unemployed or underemployed, you may qualify for free tuition. Contact TPTI at 1-888-490-TPTI or check them out on the web at tpti.us.
All right, this is Coy with the Black Tea Sip. If you're just joining us, we've had a conversation during Black History Month about black folks losing their property and black folks staying in love. And so today, I certainly want to highlight the opportunity because, you know, we haven't been together. I haven't seen you guys. It's been a whirlwind of weather. So, you know, some other things are happening in the world, and heaven forbid, this great state of Texas, some of you all are looking at me in Facebook and YouTube, and you say, oh, we should put a coat on, because it's cold in here. And some of us were at home in our houses in our full winter regalia because we lost power pretty much throughout the state of Texas. And I know a lot of people were talking about, my close friends, my family members, even my line sisters, we're all talking about people in the affluent areas didn't lose power. This is what I want to say to black folk. And I'm not talking about these particular people because that's not an incorrect statement, but I want black people to do this. I want y'all to really look at what is meant by that statement. When you say that, you know, those that are less affluent were affected and didn't have power, that's an inaccurate statement, and that's how we lose our arguments. You know, the truth is, when we start talking about disparate treatment and the disparity that we experience in our everyday life based on others, what typically ends up happening is our message gets diluted. It's not because the information is inaccurate or incorrect. It gets diluted because they find ways to put holes in it. So the weight of the water in which you speak falls out. So I want to talk about this briefly because I've had some survivor's remorse, excuse me, but I kind of got over it because we didn't lose power. But not just us. My aunt didn't lose power. Excuse me. My aunt didn't lose power. My friends didn't lose power. And based on where we live, it would be considered a socially low economic area, right? Because we're in Oak Cliff, Texas. Even though Oak Cliff, Texas has $1 million homes in it. Right down the street, there's some $750,000 homes from where I live, but it's considered a place where the affluent don't live. So when you make this argument and you say, something is in my throat, it's something in the air, something is happening. When you make those statements and you say, oh, well, only affluent, the people in Highland Park didn't lose power. The last thing that I read said that it was something about 10,000 people in Highland Park, University Park, and Preston Hollow lost power. Well, that is the affluent in Dallas. So when we start talking about the disparity in treatment, we really want to be careful about using those terms because there were a great deal of people that did not lose power that are certainly not considered affluent. What we really need to focus on is the difference between weatherizing the generators and winterizing the generators. That is the conversation and the argument that we need to have. We need to have an argument about whether or not the state of Texas, thank you, Angelo. See, he looks out for me. The state of Texas is really going to be able to fault ERCOT and say it was all their fault, Or is it the governor of Texas? Did Governor Hot Wheels roll over us one more time? Because the truth of it is that this was not about ERCOT and them shutting down the grid. They did what they had to do. The truth is, I sent messages out. My own cousin, who loves me, was like, hey, are you sure about this message? Because I've been following, not that, he was challenging me, but, he's concerned. And he was like, I've been following all of these. And I said, this message did not come from CPS Energy. Look at where it's from. And basically they were saying we were about to lose the entire grid. And the conversation was, did they want to shut it down intentionally and have a voluntary shutdown? Because we were seconds away. We were seconds away from actually losing the entire grid, which would have put all of us in the dark except for El Paso, which is on the western national grid, and then that far eastern region of Texas, which is on the eastern national grid. Everybody else, us in Dallas, North Texas, we slap in the middle, we would have lost the grid. So when I sent that message out, I was like, fill your tubs, fill jugs of water. I was dead serious because they said when they made this decision to shut down the transformers, we were 27 seconds away from a full-on shutdown in the state of Texas. That is unconscionable. That is not because it got to be -2 in Texas and that's never been seen before. It is because they weatherized and got ready for extreme heat and did not winterize for extreme cold. Now, let's be real clear. There were some that did winterize. However, they didn't follow the national guidelines. They didn't follow the guidelines for Texas winterization that they do in Chicago for winterization. And that is your governor's fault. Because this whole idea about small government that the Republicans continue to tout causes deregulation, and it puts us away from where we need to be. Many of you have said, well, we need to be on the national grid. I'm not so sure. Texas is the largest energy producer in the United States. The largest. Some of the argument at one time with the legislative body was that if we are the largest energy producer, do we want to pay taxes to be on the national grid when we can produce our own energy? That was the argument. And because at the time we don't experience the same extreme cold that these other northern states do, are we really going to get the bang for our buck? That was basically the argument. I mean, I'm breaking it really down into a nutshell, but that was basically the argument. So I'm not sure that the whole thing about being on a national grid is the solution. What the solution is to have real regulation so that this never happens again. But let us not forget, this happened in 2011. I know it happened in 2011 because I had just had the most beautiful, precious little baby boy that the world had ever seen. And I can remember the nurse came in the room and it was ice on the ground because they told me that I wasn't in full I wasn't fully in labor. My contractions weren't coming like they wanted them to. And they were talking about me going home. And this lady in New York had just had her baby on the floorboard of a car in a taxi on the road. And I knew I would not be her. So I said, we'll go in this waiting room and wait, because what we're not going to do is ice skate back out here to this hospital because the baby's coming today. And this doctor who's telling me this, whose wife would happen to be my mother's friend, he's never had a baby. He just delivered him. He don't know. And I was right. The baby came. But I remember the nurse coming into the room and telling us that it was too cold in there for the baby and we needed to raise the temperature. Now, y'all know what that was about, right? Because she didn't look like me. And she was telling this little black couple who didn't have sense enough to know that it's too cold. Because, we're not in touch with our bodies enough. We don't feel pain, let them tell it. Certainly not to the degree that they do. And we don't understand our bodies. So we didn't know it was cold. But I had opened my pajama shirt, laid my baby on my chest, and then I covered him up because I knew it was too cold in there for him, and I was keeping him warm through my body heat, but she wouldn't know that. And I remember my ex said, well, I welcome you to stick your finger out and poke on this button like I've been doing all night because we couldn't get heat. That was the first time that I know of that Texas had rolling blackouts. That's the first time I know it. That was 2011. Fast forward 2013. Same thing. We had a snowball fight. I remember my ex, we wanted some hot chocolate. He put all this stuff on and walked to the 7-Eleven. And he and I laughed about that the other day. He walked to the 7-Eleven because he couldn't drive the snow. It was iced over, and it shut North Texas down for a week. This is the first time the state had experienced this, and it won't be the last. So before you get on one side and you say, oh, we need to be on the national grid. No, what we need is real regulation from somewhere other than Governor Hot Wheels that is going to give us what we need when we need it so that we are protected and secure. Let me just add this little caveat because I don't want to harp on that too much. We got other things to talk about. Part of the Democrats' push to help us be green and to stop climate change, because I really believe this is a factor of climate change, is to stop the use of natural gas. That is at that moment I said, this is what the Republicans are talking about. So the idea that the wind turbines didn't really work and this and that didn't work, the nuclear plant shut down. It shut down because it got too cold and the generator said, oh, we've never experienced this before. Fall down, fall down. That's basically what happened with the generators. But they are in a push for against natural gas, and I don't like that. I don't like that at all because it makes us totally energy dependent. Those of us who have gas water heaters, gas stoves, gas ovens, gas furnaces, many people said they lit their gas fireplaces when their power went out. No gas, no fireplace. You would have been a fudge sickle. There were several people that presented at the hospital with hypothermia. No natural gas. That's something we need to seriously look into. Before we decide all the Republicans were evil people, we might need to start listening a little bit because I didn't know that was a Democratic push. I'm not against trying to clear it up for climate change. I think this storm was a factor of climate change, but I don't want to be handicapped and crippled and totally dependent on anything. Okay, that's my 2 cents there. I want to get that out. I wanted to make sure that y'all know where I'm coming from. I'm going to touch on this a little bit because I said that I want black people to stop just making these blanketed statements. We're talking about COVID, so let's go ahead and get the COVID corner out of the way. Talking about COVID, and I noticed on the CBS Morning News, a black man in Baltimore was saying that it's difficult to get the vaccine for those that want it. And he said that there's no CVS or Walgreens in black neighborhoods. Ta-ta-ta now. There's no CVS or Walgreens in your black neighborhood. But I can name 3 or 4 of them in a, 3-mile radius, maybe? 4-mile radius? Those of you that are homegrown, it's, what is that right there, a CVS or Walgreens in Illinois in 35. It's one on Hampton. It's, they're all over, right? So we lose our arguments like that. CVS is not going to go to Baltimore and say, oh, you don't have a CVS here? Walgreens is not going to show up and say, hey, I heard you say that. You want a Walgreens here? No, what they say is he doesn't know what he's talking about because we've got CVS and Walgreens everywhere. We need to be very careful about the messages we think. And we also need to stop thinking that we are monolithic and that we all have the same experiences because we do not. We do not. So this man doesn't have a Walgreens or CVS, and I have access to both, and I'm black, and it's in a black neighborhood. We lose our arguments that way. All right, globally, coronavirus has dropped by 11% across the globe. I think that's something, right? That's something to acknowledge because we might just be coming out of this thing. And before you start to say, woo, yay, and, clap your feet and do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around, that's when I found out that there's not just an African variant, and that there's not this new variant in the UK that we have to worry about, and that's just it. No, there's also a Brazilian variant, but there's a California variant. Remember when California shut down and Governor Newsom got a lot of flack? he got a lot of flack because they didn't want it shut down again. Even though we know globally from everything that's happened, a shutdown is the best way to get control of the virus and to stop an uptick of it. Well, let's talk about this California variant. It is the California variant B1427/B1429, sometimes referred to as the 20CL452R. It spreads more readily than its predecessors, and the variant has the ability, hear me well, melanated people, the ability to evade antibodies generated by COVID-19 vaccines. Or prior injections. I know that you all are scared. I know that this is a scary time. But there is a California variant. We already have the African variant here. And they don't know how effective these vaccines are going to be. I'm certainly not saying don't take it if you don't want to take it. If you want it and you feel like it gives you a sense of relief and protection. But I don't want you to get too comfortable, because there are some other things that are out there that are pretty doggone scary. I'm gonna tell you that. It's pretty doggone scary. The COVID-19 bill is going to have to drop the minimum wage hike. So we were trying to get the minimum wage up to $15. There was a lot of squabble in the House and the Senate about that. The Democrats adding, since we have control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, they added the minimum wage hike to $15. And some people are saying $15 is too much and the businesses won't be able to keep up and blah, blah, blah. Businesses get a lot of tax credits. When these people do not have $15 an hour, they're on food stamps. Who pays for that? Your taxes. They are on Medicaid. Who pays for that? Your taxes. So a lot of the things that they're telling you that would cause the businesses to go out, there are several studies throughout the United States that say that the economy actually improved because people had more money. The governments have more money, so I don't want you to get caught up in that. Don't believe the hype. Ugh. So now we're not going to be able to get that done. And you know why? Because someone in the Senate told the Democrats, the Senate president said, take it out. That's what happened. I didn't really realize that was a thing. Like, I guess, and I'm sorry, the Senate parliamentarian said take it out. And if you want to read, it's Associated Press, and they're talking about the $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill that Biden is trying to push through is not going to include that minimum wage hike. So if you know somebody that's skipping through the tulip feeling like they're going to get $15, tell them to sit down and wait. It's not happening just yet. And that was a tough pill to swallow. I thought that was a lot. Lady Gaga, her dogs got stolen. Did y'all see that? Her dogs didn't just get stolen. The dog walker got shot because the dog walker was trying to protect the little French bulldogs. Lady Gaga wasn't there. She wasn't at home. And so now you don't just have to worry about yourself, your children. Now we got to worry about our dogs, child. They running around here stealing dogs and kidnapping them and ransoming them off. And the poor dog walker got up that morning and had no idea that she was going to be shot. It was a lot to swallow, a lot to take in, because who would have ever thunk it? Since we're talking about Biden, I want to bring something to attention. I usually like AOC, but she was on Twitter talking about, and she literally used the word bull poopy and said that Biden needs to answer, they need to stop. And she was talking about basically it's a detention center for migrant children. So you have a lot of children that are coming to the border now and they're by themselves. And so Angelo, let's pull up the pictures of the children under Trump. Okay, because I want people to see what I'm talking about. And those of you that are just listening to me, we got children basically in cages. And we've all seen the pictures covered up with these foil blankets. I don't understand a foil blanket. I'm so confused about a foil blanket. Because all I can think to myself is, how warm would I be if I lay in the floor on these wood floors in my house and cover up with aluminum foil. Like, how warm would I really be? I don't understand the concept of aluminum blanket. Anyway, so this is a picture of children, and they're just crammed, and it's literally like a cage. It reminds me of a dog crate. You know, if you go to certain vets, they say crate. The word is supposed to be crate, but it's a cage, right? You put your dog in a cage, and you tell them that's their house, and you kind of, you know, you give them you Obi-Wan Kenobi them is basically what you do. It's a Jedi mind trick. You tell them it's a house, but really it's a cage. And that's basically what Trump did. He said, oh, this is a detention center. Y'all want to come over here seeking asylum. We got a process, but let me throw you in this cage. And they're packed in there like sardines. Now, AOC was railing against him for this. Oh, I mean, but we all were, weren't we? You didn't have to be in Congress. You didn't have to be in the House. Everybody was horrified about this. Anyone with a conscience. Now let's bring up the picture of Biden's detention center. So they just opened Biden's detention center, and it is vastly different. So I'm not sure why she's so upset, because you have to have a place for these children to go. I mean, there's got to be a process that you check them in and you know, and what exactly that you do. So in Biden's detention center, you have books for learning. They have it in both. They have the words both in Spanish and English. They're socially distancing the children. They have a projector with a tent where they can watch a video or films. They also have a blue tent that says, that's for health care. And it says welcome in English and in Spanish. There's a place for learning. I'm not sure why she's so upset. And so sometimes I think we get behind these people and we think, yeah, they're championing them. It's great, great. And they really, some of these Congress people, and I have to throw AOC in there, they're kind of like, you know, like rappers. Like, you know, they stage certain events and say things so that they remain relevant or credible. Since the insurrection, I've been really taking stock of the people that I'm, quote unquote, following. The people that I have formulated good opinions of. The people that I thought, oh yeah, I like what she says. We're like-minded. I've started to really take stock and be steadfast in not jumping on the proverbial bandwagon, because I think that serves no purpose. I think that it is really, really dangerous for us to do that now. Speaking of the insurrection, we haven't talked, but as you know, Trump was found not guilty and was not impeached. But all of the people who are following him are using the fact that they felt like he told them. Well, since he didn't get impeached, and they're saying they felt like the president told them to go, and that's why they did it. They felt like they were doing what they were asked from their president. You know, I really want someone, perhaps it'll be a prosecutor, to simply just say, well, if your president jumped off a bridge with you, the problem is a lot of these people would. Recently, we had the misfortune of having to acknowledge Ahmaud Arbery's 1 year anniversary death. His mother filed a civil lawsuit. We knew it was coming. The idea that parents seem to bury their children and then get some money, and then we go on to the next one. I think we're getting desensitized. I had a friend call me the day of the insurrection, and she said, oh my God, Coy, oh my God, we're in a Scooby-Doo movie. We're in a Scooby-Doo movie. And I was like, what? She's like, we're in a Scooby-Doo movie. We're in a Scooby-Doo movie. And I said, we're in a Scooby-Doo movie. And she was like, yeah. You know, we've been chasing 2021 all around, and we finally capture one. We snatch off the wig, and it's really 2020. And I laughed, because based on that analogy, we are absolutely in a Scooby-Doo movie, because nothing seems right or real. Nothing seems like what it really is. We seem to really be in a cluster screw. I'm going to use that word because my mom might be watching. I really think that too much of what we've done, we have relied on people to give us good information, and we haven't gotten it. And I'm not sure that we've gotten it from anybody, really, you know, to be honest. And I'm wondering, really and truly, what our next steps are going to be. Do you know? I think you should be thinking about that. Since it's Black History, I want to talk about somebody, Black excellence. Diane Durham was inducted into the Gymnastic Hall of Fame. I'm going to be honest, I never thought about the Gymnastic Hall of Fame before. It's a thing. But she was the first African-American who was acknowledged as having the perfect score. And her husband wrote, Diane Durham, the love of my life, passed away today. She passed away very recently. She stuck a triple full over the gates of heaven and was awarded with the biggest prize ever. She will be in heaven for eternity. I will miss her, but know that she will be my guardian angel. Her sister Alice and I were by her side when she passed away peacefully. I love you with all my heart, Diane, and I will honor your memory for the rest of my life. I thought that was a very precious, sweet way to say that she had gone on. But I wanted to acknowledge her because she did something that we didn't even hear about. I've never heard the name Diane Durham. So I wanted to acknowledge her. I wanted to make sure that I called her name, and I wanted to acknowledge the sweetness of what her husband has done. I also want to mention a Meharry Medical School graduate, Dr. John Henry Hale, was an accomplished surgeon who conducted 30,000 operations. In 1916, he and his wife, Millie Hale, converted the upstairs of their home near Meharry into a makeshift hospital for Black patients who were turned away from white hospitals. You know, it's Black History Month. No shocker there. Starting as a 12-bed facility, the hospital eventually grew to include 75 beds with a laboratory, maternity ward, and operating room. More than 4,000 patients from Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina, Texas, and Tennessee were treated there. In 1938, Dr. Hale, the surgeon-in-chief at the Hale Hospital, was appointed chief of surgery at Meharry, and the Millie E. Hale Hospital closed. The Henry Hale Housing Project in Nashville is named in his honor. Dr. John Henry and Millie Hale are 2018 inductees of the Tennessee Healthcare Hall of Fame. Outstanding. Since we're talking about Tennessee, I want to mention this briefly before I get out of here. There's been a lot of talk about the president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Dr. Glenda Glover. I have only had the opportunity to meet Dr. Glenda Glover one time, and I've had the opportunity to talk to her on the phone. Now, I appreciate the fact that she is the international president of a great organization like Alpha Kappa Alpha, and she still answers her cell phone and is very much, accessible and approachable. And that I appreciate greatly because we have had other presidents of other organizations, I'm not necessarily talking about AKA, that you can't get in touch with them. I mean, I've had presidents of local organizations you can't get in touch with. They're just, too busy, too important. That's not the case here. But I feel like I'd be remiss. You can take it down, Angela. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't say there has been a lot of conversation. She did accept an appointment with Civic Corps, which is a private prison company. They run private prisons. And there's been a lot of conversation about it. And we sip power to pour truth on here, and we celebrate and examine the Black life experience, so I'm going to touch on it briefly. Many people have said she should not have accepted the appointment, and others have said if we're not at the table, and, I've had a lot to say on both sides. Let me say this. I think it was an error in judgment. But here's the thing, and I don't know if she serves on other boards. I did not look. It is not advantageous to not accept a board appointment, and so I think that was part of why she accepted it. That appointment paid $200,000. So you understand there are boards, like the volunteer boards that I've sat on, and then there are paid boards. Once you get on a paid board, the others start rolling in. My cousin has a friend that makes $1.5 million a year, and all she does is sit on paid boards. That's it. Now, paid boards usually meet once a year. Some will meet twice a year. And then you have some that meet quarterly, but that's very rare. So when you turn down these board appointments, you may not get another one. Once you get one, you can get others. That's just kind of nature of the beast. She did say that the $200,000 she was going to give back to the students of Tennessee State University, where she's the president. That's admirable. Here's my take on that. Because she is the leader, the top dog, if you will, of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, she is she sets the standard. She's the epitome and the representation of the organization, with the VP also being a member, and with the Biden administration saying publicly that they are phasing away from privatized prisons. I do not think it was good optics. I'm going to go a little further. I don't think that it was a wise decision to accept, but I do appreciate the fact that she declined. But what I want us to do as a collective, as a body of this African American kind of place that we're all in, because unfortunately we are seen as one-dimensional, all thinking the same, viewing the same, and having the same opinions, and so we are affected the same. I think it is a bad idea for us to make a decision about doing things without looking at the big picture and really looking at how it's going to affect others. So privatized prison we need to get away from, because it is the reason for mass incarceration. All right, this is Coy, and that's my time. So we'll do it again, same bat time, same back channel. You know, if the water don't rise, you know, and the levee stay the same. You know, if the creek don't rise and God say the same. This is Coy, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll do it again. Diamonds, pearls, and Jerry curls, and I'm out.
Forgive me. I'm staring at this Bible as I keep glancing. Dear Lord, I got questions and I need answers.